Now in this part of the lecture, we are going to discuss everything with respect to the missiles that we have in India. All the different types of missiles that we have and all the different programs associated with the missiles that we have in India. So the very first thing that we need to discuss here is the Integrated Guided Missile Development Program. Now when we talk about this program, this is something that was launched in 1983 when Indira Gandhi was our Prime Minister. This was the first program that was taken up by India to develop a system of missiles in India. Now, this program started in 1983 and by 2008 we had completed the development of this program. Now under this program, there are 5 families of missiles that were developed by India. So it's very important from examination perspective also that you know about all these 5 families of the missiles. So one by one we'll have a look at all these 5 families. So what are these 5 families? You have the Agni missiles, you have the Prithvi missiles, you have Trishul, you have Akash, and you have Nag. These are the 5 families of missiles under this particular program that was taken by India. Now one by one we shall discuss all the 5 families of missiles, starting with the Agni missiles. So when we talk about the Agni missiles, or rather for any missile that we are now going to have a discussion on, please remember few facts. For example, what you see on your screens about Agni missiles is that it is a family of surface to surface, medium to continental range missiles, and they are ballistic in. These are the 3 fundamental facts about Agni missiles that have been given to you. Similarly, what you will see is for each and every missile that we are going to discuss, these kind of information will be given for you. Now all these information become important for you, and in the past we have seen questions coming from here. How the questions had come, when we go to a particular missile, we'll have a look on it. So one by one, let's have a discussion on it. First of all, we have Agni 1 missile. So when we talk about the Agni 1 missiles, the fact that has been given here becomes important. It is a single stage, solid propellant, short range, ballistic missile, range between 700 to 1200 kilometers. So 5 facts have been given. All these 5 facts become important. As far as the payloads go, it can carry up to 2000 kg of payload. But when it is carrying 2000 kg of payload, it would be able to go up to 700 kilometers. And if the payload is decreased, if the payload is 1000 kilograms, in that case, it will be able to go up to 1200 kilometers. So the range that has been defined for Agni 1 is between 700 to 1200 kilometers. So what are the facts that you need to remember? First of all, the range, that is 700 to 1200 kilometers. Range for each and every missile that we are going to discuss becomes important. Then the fact that it is a ballistic missile becomes important. It's a medium range missile becomes important. It is a short range missile becomes important. It is a single staged solid fuel missile, solid propellant missile. We had a discussion on this. What is the meaning of stage and what are the different kind of propellants that we use? So all these kind of things becomes very, very important. And one more fact that I've given here is about the transporter elector launcher vehicle that will enable it to be launched from roads or to be launched from rails. So this is about Agni 1 missiles. Then we move to Agni 2. So when we talk about the Agni 2 missiles, 2-stage solid propellant, medium range ballistic missile, range between 2000 to 3500 kilometers. 5 facts again: 2-staged solid ballistic medium range, and the range being between 2000 to 3500 kilometers. Now one thing that you will see is, if you go to various sources, the range will not be defined as I have defined here. For example, at some sources you might see that the range has been defined as 2500 to 3500 kilometers. Sometimes you will see that it has been defined as 2000 to 3000, sometimes 2000 to 4000. But in this range it will be defined. You will see that in many places this is the range that will be given. When a question comes in the examination, they might give you 2000 to 3000, 2000 to 3500, 2000 to 4000. All these will be correct. But if the range has been given as 5000, range has been given as 7000, range has been given as less than 1000, then in these cases all this information becomes wrong. But if it is in the range of plus minus 500 kilometers from what I've given you here, in that case mark it as correct, because at various sources you will see that the information varies a bit. So just remember this fact. Then again, it can carry a payload of up to 1000 kg up to 2000 kilometers, and a reduced payload up to 3500 kilometers. And same as it was for Agni 1, same applies for Agni 2 as well, that it can be launched from transporter erector launcher, which could be based on the road or it can be based on rails. Then comes the Agni 3 missiles. When we talk about the Agni 3 missiles, it is again two-staged, solid propellant, intermediate range, ballistic missile, range between 3000 to 5000 kilometers. So now this is something that now starts to become intermediate range. Sometimes this intermediate range will also be called as long range missiles. Now in case of Agni 3, what we see is that length of the missile is shorter, but the range of the missile is much longer. And again, as far as the payloads go, the payloads can be higher. It can carry 2000 kgs up to 3000 kilometers now. And at a reduced payload, it can go up to 5000 kilometers. So this makes it maybe a better variant, or a variant which can go farther as compared to Agni 1 and Agni 2. Now next we have Agni 4. When we talk about Agni 4, again some bits and pieces of information become important. It is a two-staged solid fuel missile. It is a ballistic missile. It is a long range missile. The range that you have here can vary between 3500 to 4000 kilometers, but sometimes at some places you will see that it is written as 2500 to 4000 also. So in the range of 2500 to 4000 kilometers, if it is given in the options that are given, then it can be considered as correct. Now one more important fact, that it can also carry nuclear warheads apart from the chemical and the biological weapons. Then at the same time, it can also be launched from transporter erector launcher. So all these facts become important about Agni 4. Now there is one question that was asked in 2014 paper in your prelims examination about Agni 4. Three statements were given. First statement was that Agni 4 is a surface to surface missile, which is obviously correct, because as we discussed earlier, all the Agni missiles are surface to surface missile. So this was correct. Second statement was it is fueled by liquid propellant, which is wrong. As you can see on your screens itself that it has solid propellant. So second statement was wrong. Third statement said that it has a range of about 7500 kilometers. Again, a wrong statement. So this is a question that had come in 2014 from Agni 4, and that's why I am stressing on this point again and again, that these pieces of information, especially the first line that you have for all the missiles that I've given here, they will remain important for your prelims paper. So this is about Agni 4. Next we have Agni 5 missiles. Now Agni 5 missiles is very different as compared to the Agni 1, 2, 3 and 4 variants that we are talking about. First of all, it is an intercontinental missile, meaning that the range is very high. So that's the first advantage that we have with Agni 5. The development of Agni 5 was started in 2008, and since then we have seen that there have been multiple successful test runs that have been conducted by India. Last we saw was, I think, December 2018, and after December 2018 there haven't been any more trials, but all the launches, all the trial launches that have been done, everything has been successful. So with Agni 5, few things that we know is, first of all, it is going to be three-staged, that's there. Then we are using solid propellant. It is an intercontinental missile, it is a ballistic missile, and the range is between 5000 to 7000 kilometers. Now this is one area where we don't know the exact information. If you look at Agni 5, you look at various resources, you will see that somebody is writing it as 5000 to 6000, 5500 to 5800, 5500 to 6500, 5000 to 8000. All these numbers are being used. See, first thing is that the information about what is going to be the range for Agni 5 has been classified. So we just know a basic range that has come from some defense sources, some military sources, where they say that it might be between 5000 to 7000 kilometers. But many experts say that it is actually going to be beyond 7000 kilometers. It might be up to 8000 to 8500 kilometers. So this is about the range of Agni 5. Now Agni 5 also was in news this year, that by the end of this year, perhaps it will also be a part of Indian defense system, because although all the successful trials have been done, tests have been done, but in 2020 it is expected that Agni 5 will be inducted into the Indian arsenal. So this is about Agni 5. Now, one more piece of information that you see here is that it has a potential to carry multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle warheads. So when we are talking about multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle, then if you look at the picture, the first picture on the top that you have, a normal missile. When we talk about a normal missile, what you can see on the screen itself is that it carries just one warhead. What is a warhead? Basically the bomb in simple terms. So it can carry only one warhead. But when we talk about this mechanism, in this mechanism, what you see is that there are multiple warheads, right? So in this case, what happens is, if you look at the second picture, then what you will see is that there are multiple targets that can be destroyed in a single vehicle. So that's why this becomes a very, very important technology to have. And if you look at the entire world, there are hardly handful countries which have this technology. China has it, France, UK, USA, Russia. I mean, there is no official announcement, but Israel also has it. The tests perhaps are going on. Pakistan also has it, and India of course has it. So that's why when we talk about this technology, this is available only with a handful of countries. Iran also has it. If you remember January 2020, there was an incident where some missiles were launched by the US from Iraq into Iran, where Qasem Soleimani had died. And in response to that, Iran also had launched one missile into Iraq. And this missile that was launched, this actually was launched using this multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle. So that's why there we saw that it was for the first time that Iran also used this technology. So all these are only the handful countries which have this technology currently. And India in its Agni 5 missiles and also in its rumored Agni 6 missiles is going to use it. Now this brings us to another interesting point, and that is about India's Agni 6 missiles. So now there is another set of Agni missiles that India is building, and there is no confirmation on it, although many of the experts, many of the agencies have been saying that yes, India is building it. India officially has not said that we are building an Agni 6 variant also, but as the information goes, as some of the information that we know about Agni 6 is that it may have a range up to 12,000 kilometers. Although India has completely denied it, India has said that India does not have any missile or is not building any missile that might have a range of more than 10,000 kilometers. So, but there are rumors that there is an Agni 6 missile that India is building, which will have three-staged propellant. It will be an intercontinental missile. The range will be beyond maybe 10,000 kilometers. All these are basic information that is available currently. But officially India has denied it because there were many apprehensions from many countries. Entire Europe comes under our range if Agni 6 missiles are developed. So Europe had apprehensions, China had apprehensions, even USA, experts based out of USA had apprehensions that why does India need a missile that goes as far as Europe? The answer to this basically that was given by the experts based out of India is very simple, that we are not building a missile to attack Europe. We don't want to attack Europe. We have never used missiles against these countries. We have nothing against these countries. But when we are building the defense needs to be built in a way that we are capable of targeting anyone who could be targeting us, right? Because if you go back to the earlier discussions that we had, that most of these missiles are strategic missiles. These are not the missiles that are going to be used in the war as the first strike by India. Perhaps maybe if there are tensions with any country, in international relations you can never say that your friends of today will be friends of tomorrow. So you don't know what will happen with the European countries, you don't know what will happen with any country for that matter in the world, whether or not that country will remain a friend forever. And this has been seen on multiple occasions in international relations in the world between many, many countries. That Agni 6 missiles may have a range of 10,000 or 12,000 kilometers doesn't mean that we are going to use it against a country. It is just being developed for having a defense against anything that might happen, not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe 20 years, 50 years from now. So that's about Agni series of missiles, Agni family of missiles. The next family of missiles that we have under Integrated Guided Missile Development Program are the Prithvi missiles. Now, when we talk about the Prithvi missiles, just remember that there are three variants: Prithvi 1, Prithvi 2, and Prithvi 3. And these three variants specifically have been made for different armed forces of India. Prithvi 1, for example, has been made for the Indian Army. Prithvi 2 has been made for the Indian Air Force. And Prithvi 3 has been made for the Indian Navy. So these are the three variants of Prithvi missiles. One more thing that you need to remember, again, the basic facts about the Prithvi missiles. These are tactical missiles. These are surface to surface missiles. These are short range missiles. And these are ballistic missiles. So these are the four concepts, or rather four facts, that you will have to remember about the Prithvi missiles. Now, when we talk about the Prithvi missiles, there are two more missile names that you will have to remember. One is Dhanush and one is Prahar. So when we talk about the Dhanush missile and the Prahar missiles, these two also become very important. So before we move on to what is Dhanush, what is Prahar, and there is another version that we'll have to talk about, and that is Pranash. So we'll have a look at all these three also. So first, when we talk about the Prithvi 1 missiles, these are single staged missiles. They use liquid propellant. They have a range between 40 kilometers to 150 kilometers and up to 1000 kg of payload capacity. So these are the basic details about Prithvi 1. When you talk about Prithvi 2, it's a better variant. It is also single staged. It is also liquid propelled, and it has a range between 250 to 350 kilometers, and it can carry a payload of up to 500 kg. When we talk about Prithvi 3, this is a two-stage. Please remember that this is two-staged solid propellant, range of 300 to 350 kilometers, and up to 1000 kg of payload capacity it has. So these are the three variants of Prithvi missiles. Now, as we discussed, you have another set of missiles, one which is called as Dhanush. So when we talk about Dhanush, it is single staged, liquid propelled, short range ballistic missile, range between 250 to 400 kilometers. Now when we talk about Dhanush, Dhanush basically is going to be the naval variant, or rather you can say it is going to be similar to Prithvi 3. So Dhanush is seen as the replacement of Prithvi 3 missile. Now, when we talk about Prithvi 3, what we saw was that the range was up to 350 kilometers. But when you look at Dhanush missiles have a range of up to 400 kilometers. So that's why we say that it's a better variant of Prithvi 3 missiles, that is the naval variant of Prithvi missile. Now, the next missile that you have is Prahar. And when we talk about the Prahar missiles, it is seen as a better variant of Prithvi 1 missile, and it is something which is going to replace Prithvi 1 missiles. Now, if you go by some of the reports that we saw in the early 2020, was that there is going to be another better variant of Prahar missiles, and these are going to be called as Pranash missile. Now, talking about the Pranash missiles, what we have learned about Pranash is that the range is going to be up to 200 kilometers. In Prithvi 1, we discussed that the range is between 40 to 150 kilometers. Same when you talk about Prahar missiles also. For Prahar missiles also, the range is 150 kilometers. So, if you talk about Prahar, single stage, solid propellant, short range, immediate combat, ballistic missile, and that's why you can say that these are tactical missiles. So anyway, we discussed that all the Prithvi missiles are tactical missiles and range up to 150 kilometers. So that's why when we talk about Pranash, which is under development currently as per the reports, if you go by some of the reports of, I think, February 2020, you'll find these reports. So you'll see that they have talked about that the Pranash missiles will have a range of up to 200 kilometers. All the other criteria remaining almost the same. So that's why they are going to be a better variant of Prahar missiles. And Prahar missile is something which is seen as a better variant of Prithvi 1 missile, something which is replacing Prithvi 1 missile. Right? So please remember all these connections. So three missiles, Prithvi 1, Prithvi 2 and Prithvi 3. Basic details about them, and then after that the three variants, that is Dhanush, Prahar and Pranash. these 6 missiles come together when you talk about Prithvi missiles. And anyway, all the basic facts are something that we have discussed. Now, the next missile that we need to look into are Trishul missiles. Now, first thing that you need to remember about Trishul is that this is a missile which is not in service anymore. But since it is the part of the same integrated guided missile development program, you need to know the basic details about it. So the first thing that you need to know is that it is a short range surface to air missile for Navy that would be used for immediate combat action. So this is the basic functionality that was supposed to be carried out with the help of Trishul missiles. But if you go into the history of Trishul, you will see that in late 1990s, the Navy was facing a lot of issues because this Trishul missile was not functioning properly. And then you will see that they started to prefer Barak 1. Barak 1, we are going to have a discussion on Barak 1 as well. So what we saw was that the Navy started to prefer Barak 1 instead of Trishul missiles. And also after that, there was some controversy that Trishul missiles had run into because the government of the day, the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government, had preferred Barak 1 over Trishul missiles. A lot of misfires had happened, a lot of tests had failed. So because of all these reasons, neither the Navy liked it nor the government wanted to continue with it. So then you will see that Barak 1 was the missile that had started to replace Trishul missiles. Then after that, by 2012, we saw that Trishul missiles were completely being shut down. Although the president of the time, Dr. Pranab Mukherjee, he had given 1 year extension also to his program. He wanted Trishul program to succeed, but that didn't happen. And you will see that today there is no discussion in and around Trishul missiles because first it was replaced by Barak 1, and then later a better variant of Barak 1, that is Barak 8, had come into the picture, because of which we saw that Trishul missiles completely lost its picture. So a range of 9 kilometers, the missile is not in service anymore. This is something which is very, very important for you to understand, right? So this is about Trishul missiles. Now the next missile that we need to discuss about is Akash missile. Now when we talk about Akash missiles, first of all you have to remember that this is a medium range surface to air missile. Most importantly, this is a surface to air. Please remember this. Now when a missile like this is surface to air missile, this is something that is usually used to attack anything or defend us against anything that is incoming. It can be an air vehicle, an unmanned air vehicle. It can be a drone, that is. It can be an aircraft. It can be a missile. It can be even a ballistic missile. And all these kind of different things that can attack us via air, these are the kinds of things that Akash missile can be used against. Now in June 2020, you will see that while there was a standoff between India and China at Ladakh, you will see that the Akash missiles were deployed in Ladakh near the LAC. Why? Because if there is any possibility of any attack from the Chinese side, we that Akash missile can be used against. Now in June 2020, you will see that while there was a standoff between India and China at Ladakh, you will see that the Akash missiles were deployed in Ladakh near the LAC. Why? Because if there is any possibility of any attack from the Chinese side, we should be in a position to defend ourselves. And this is where you will see that Akash missiles were deployed in the Ladakh region during the standoff that had happened. So that's why you have to understand the basics of it. So when we talk about Akash, one very, very important point is also that it has a radar system also which works along with it. And the name of the radar is very important for the exam. The name is Rajendra. Rajendra radar is something that is used along with the Akash missile. Now, one more thing that you have to understand, that when we talk about destroying an incoming target, whether a missile, aircraft, drone, whatever it may be, Akash is capable of destroying up to 12 such targets at once. Because when you talk about the launchers of Akash, there can be 4 launchers at a time that can function. All these 4 launchers can have 3 missiles each, and all these 12 missiles can function together. When it comes to the radar, the Rajendra radar, it can track up to more than 60 targets at a time. 64 to be precise. So more than 60 targets can be looked after at a time with the help of this radar, and at least 12 of them can be destroyed at a time with the help of Akash missiles. So that's why a missile like this becomes so crucial for our defense. And that is why you will see, if you go back to the news articles of June or May 2020, you will see that Akash missiles were deployed by India in the Ladakh region near the line of actual control. So this is about Akash missiles. Let's move to the next missile, which is Nag. So when we talk about the Nag missiles, first and the most important point about this is that it is an anti-tank missile. So anti-tank missile meaning that this would be usually used against battle tanks. So first of all, the range will be very small. Why? Because these would be tactical missiles. If you go back to the definition of tactical, we had discussed that these would be the missiles that will be used in a real battlefield. So these missiles are called as anti-tank missiles, and these anti-tank missiles will have a range of only 4 kilometers. Now, one very important point about Nag missiles is that it is a fire and forget kind of missile. What is the meaning of fire and forget? And this is a particular term that you will usually see associated with most of the air to air missiles. So when we say fire and forget, these would be the missiles where you will see that the missiles already have been fed with all the information that they need to make the attack. So first of all, what do you need? You need the coordinates, right? You need the coordinates. You perhaps would need a GPS system so that the guidance can happen. And what we are saying is that it would be pre-programmed. This kind of a missile will be pre-programmed so that all the information has been fed, and that's why it is called as fire and forget kind of missile, right? So this is what this particular term means. Now when we talk about the Nag missiles, there are various versions. You have the land version and you have the air launch version, and there are three different platforms. From prelims point of view, this is an important fact. One is Namika, that is Nag missile carrier. Then you have HAL Dhruv, which is helicopter based, and then you have HAL light combat helicopter. Now there is another word that you will come across, that is Helena. Helena means helicopter Nag. So this is an advanced variant of Nag, and it is based on lock on after launch system. Now when we talk about lock on after launch, this is again something that is usually used for air to air missiles, where you will see that the missile will lock into the target, and once it has locked onto the target, it will follow the target and destroy it. So it will have an inertial guidance system. There are other technicalities associated with it, not required for you to know from examination perspective. But what you need to know is that when we talk about lock on after launch, this is a kind of system that will help to destroy any of the maneuvering objects also. So even if the tank is moving, once the missile has been launched, it is in a position to destroy while following the tanks. This is why it is called as lock on after launch. So these are two particular terms that you will have to remember. One, lock on after launch, and second, fire and forget. Now in July 2020, you will see that when we talk about Helena, there was one test that was done, which was a successful test, and that was a test of Helena. Now here, if you go by the news articles, there is a new name that has been used for Helena, and that is Dhruvastra. There is a new name that has been used. So just remember, from prelims perspective, if at all a question can come, these are few of the things from where a question can come. And from examination perspective, I would say that although Trishul missile probably is not very important, but all the other missile systems that we have discussed under integrated guided missile development program are going to be important, and especially because of the fact that we also saw the use of some of these missiles in the standoff that had happened between India and China. So this brings us to the end of all the missiles that come under the particular program that was first launched by India in 1983. Now after this, it's not that it is end of the number of missiles that we have. We have certain other missiles also, and the next segment that I'm going to jump into, this is a segment where we are going to discuss about all the other kinds of missiles that we have. So for example, a missile like BrahMos, a missile like Astra, We had a discussion on Barak 1 and Barak 8. So all these are missiles which we are going to do in our next section that is starting now.